What's up?
Hey, Doc.
What's going on, man? Didn't expect you here, bro.
Yeah, yeah. Well, uh, when she said the heavy hitters are going to be on, I said, well, I got to be part of that. Yeah, I got to be a part of that.
This is my 7th Zoom this week.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. I
Okay,
can hear
good.
you.
All right, good. Yeah. Well, good. You're certainly
Hey,
on time.
yeah, and I was asleep.
Oh, yeah.
My nephew called me because I thought I was trying to knock out my column. I started writing again. I do a weekly column. I'm trying to knock out my column, and then I thought, well, let me get home and get rested before and I thought the meeting was 7, and I saw it was, it was 8 o'clock, you all's time. I said, oh, that give me some more.
I'm
That
sorry
gives you a
about
little
that, Thomas.
That's okay.
So, right. So I did get a notice that somebody got on the Zoom call and I thought, oh my goodness. So
Yeah,
I don't always put Eastern like I should. So my apology.
right. No, I'm good. Thanks a lot.
Okay. So I got 2 of the recordings, the Malcolm X recordings today, which is
Okay.
great. Yeah.
Good.
So thank you for that. Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
Tommy, you see that trial with Kyle Rittenhouse today?
I
Up
saw
in
a
Wisconsin.
small snippet.
Boy, I tell you, man, he's gonna walk.
What
yeah.
trial is that? Which one?
The one up in was Minnesota. The guy that killed like 2 people and wounded 1.
In Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's gonna walk. That judge is so obviously, he reminds me of Judge Hoffman during the Chicago 7 trial back in the 60s.
Yeah.
I mean, he's yelling and screaming at prosecutors and, overruling anything that the prosecution says.
Right.
So he's definitely going to walk.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, here's Samuel. Good. Here's Samuel Pia.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
He's in Haiti. I didn't know if he'd be able to make it or not, but
Right on.
Samuel.
He's not connected.
No, he's not connected yet. He's connecting to audio. Do you know him, Thomas?
No, never had the pleasure to meet.
Okay.
Hey, Sam, what's up?
Hey, Doc, how are you
Man,
doing?
long time no talk to.
I know. When Heather told me you were coming on board today, I said, great, man. It's been a while.
It's good to hear your voice, man. It's been a while.
I know.
I'm sorry we missed each other when you were in DC, a couple of months ago.
Yeah. We'll do it. We'll do it one of these days, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Heather tells me you're in Haiti.
Yeah.
How's
Yeah.
everything going down there?
My brother, it is depressing. It is, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's hard, but it's a real fact. I mean, when I walk in the streets, I just see all of Africa right here.
Right,
And
right.
but it's stressful. I mean, we've had few dignitaries here yesterday and today trying to make peace, and but I mean, when you can sell petrol for $30 a gallon, it's hard to, so it's rough.
So Samuel, let me introduce you to Thomas Muhammad, who's on here as well. He was the one who told me about Ray Winbush, actually. And he's just done all this great work. One of the things he's done is a video about Malcolm X coming to the South, actually. It's absolutely wonderful. Anyway, I want to introduce you both to each other. So
okay. Is that the guy I talked to today? Or
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Thomas, go ahead.
Yeah.
Thomas, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Brother Samuel, yeah, I have a good piece of Haiti in my home. I've had for about 8 years now.
Uh-huh.
And that's it. And that's a replica of the statue of the Neg Maroon.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have the Neg at home.
Oh my, oh my. Yeah, man. I'm staying just next door to the old sugarcane industry, sugarcane plantation
Oh, here's
in
Wendell. Good.
Port-au-Prince, and yeah, we can do more, but God willing, it's forum like this. Let's just connect and harvest the synergy to move on, because it's tough. It's tough.
Right.
What
Yeah.
was for a moment? Just excuse me, my apologies, but is the statue of the Neg, is that still up, or was it destroyed in a hurricane?
It was destroyed partly. It was destroyed partly. The physical destruction here is unbelievable, man.
Right.
Our history, and even I went to the garden for reparation in Port-au-Prince.
Right.
It's just dead, man. It's just dead.
Mm.
And hopefully, some leaders or some citizens will revive it. But it seems like everything is dying in this city, in this country.
Mm.
Thank you for that. And I'll get out of y'all's way so we can get back to a conversation. But
Okay, Thomas, I'll take some pictures and I'll share with Heather, and she can share with the group. Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So
All
hello, Wendell, Gloria.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Hey,
How
Wendell.
you all?
Hi, Gloria.
All right.
Hi, Yende.
Hey.
Hey,
Yeah,
I
man,
can see
Wendell.
you all. I don't know if you can see me. Do you?
I can't
Well,
see you. Only person I can see is Gloria and Allende.
Oh, wow.
We can see your W.
I can see your W. Now I can see you.
Well, that's enough. That'll work. I trust that you all are doing well.
Yes, yes.
Oh, here's Vernon. Excellent. We're getting a
Okay.
good crowd here.
Oh, Wendell, did you press your video on? Is your video on?
Look at that. Hey,
There you
can y'all
go.
see
You
me?
gotta-
I
Hey,
can see
Wendell.
myself.
There's
We
Samuel.
saw you for a second.
You don't see me now? Oh,
Yeah,
boy,
we
Yes,
see
we can
you.
see
We
you.
see you, Wendell.
all right, mighty fine. Glad to know that you all are doing well.
Yes.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing,
Hi,
buddy?
Vernon. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Emery.
Hey, how y'all?
Hi,
Hey,
Jerry.
Emery.
Hello, folks. Hello, folks.
How you
Hello.
doing?
Phone. I'm not on video. I'm on the phone. I'm driving.
Who is that?
Okay.
Who is that?
It's Hassan.
That's Vernon.
Oh, hi, Hassan.
Oh, that was
Are you
Hassan?
are you
Oh, I thought it was
Pamela's
Vernon.
phone?
No, Gloria.
No, who's Pamela's phone?
Who's what?
Pamela's phone? I don't know who that is. Somebody's Pamela's
Oh,
phone.
I don't know.
I think that's
Yeah.
a friend of mine, Pamela.
Oh, okay, good. Hello, Pamela.
Hello.
My goodness. Well, let's see.
I'm going to call Hank.
Pamela, okay, if you check on Hank or Pamela, is this your first time visiting with us? I think so. So give us your
Yes, it
name, rank,
is.
give us your
Yes,
name,
it
rank,
is.
and serial number. Tell us a little about yourself.
I'm a young Black woman, 64 years old.
Amen, baby.
Hey,
All right.
Sorry, young.
I love you already, Pamela. Pamela, what's your
Elvis-
last name? What's your last name?
Reed?
Okay. You didn't go to Clemson, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Where you living, Pamela?
I live in Clementon, New Jersey.
Oh, how long have you been in up north?
I've been up north most of my life. I
Oh,
lived in
boy.
Atlanta, Georgia for 20 years.
My goodness.
Oh,
Well,
that's where I am. What 20 years were those? What range?
The years were 1984 through 2003, actually.
Okay. Were you in the city proper?
No, I was actually in Jonesboro.
Okay,
Georgia.
south of the city. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
oh boy.
Hello, Hanifa.
Greetings.
Hey, Anita.
Eva, were you able to reach Hank?
Not yet. Let me try again.
All right, boss, you know my motto.
What
What's
is
your
it?
What's your
CP?
motto?
Huh?
CP modified.
Huh?
We got to modify CP.
What is your motto, Gertrude? Gertrude,
If you're
what's
on
your
time,
motto?
you're already late.
Right.
Gertrude, what's your motto?
If you're on time, you're already late.
Oh boy.
All right, let's get busy.
Well, let's give her a half a second. She's trying to get Hank.
I give a half a second to wait for Hank.
Okay.
I modified a little to wait for Hank.
All right. Is Pat on yet? Pat Bryant? Okay, no problem. Oh man. We're in the middle of this.
Wendell, I
Yeah.
just got Hank. He's on a back road. He said, give him about 3 minutes. He
Okay.
should be able to call in. And I do want everyone to know that Thomas Muhammad, who's also on our call, he has been on before. He was the one who told us that we should contact Ray Winbush. He's known him for a while. And Thomas is from Texas. He's done all this great work on Malcolm X, actually. He did this wonderful film of Malcolm X coming to Selma. And they interviewed a lot of folks who met Malcolm when he came to Selma. It was just wonderful. So welcome, Thomas.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Almost did you go by chance visit Tuskegee while you were there?
No, didn't get a chance to get by Tuskegee, but heard a whole lot about it. And Bernard Lafayette and I were hanging out for a moment.
Okay.
Tuskegee, but no, I never got a chance.
I mentioned that because Malcolm had, during that trip to Selma, he also came over and visited Tuskegee.
Yeah, that was the reason for coming in the first place.
I didn't understand you.
I said that was his reason for coming in the first place, to
Right.
speak at Tuskegee, invited by SNCC.
Right.
And so they decided, since he was down at Tuskegee, he could go over to Selma. He wanted to go over to Selma and visit Dr. King, who was in jail at that time in Selma. So yeah, but he came to speak at Tuskegee, and he was coming back, but he was gunned down.
Right. Yeah. I heard him
Knew
mention.
the contents of that conversation between him and Dr. King.
He didn't get a chance to talk to Dr. King. The jailers would not allow him to visit Dr. King, and that was a real missed moment for both of them, because it would be recognized the first time that they would have spoken to each other in a meeting. but yeah, he didn't get a chance to do that.
So Wendell, I was wondering before we start, while we're waiting for Hank, I was wondering, could we just have folks just quickly say where they are, what they do or something? We don't want to take long on that though, I know. Is it so
Okay.
that Ray will know? So.
All right, that would be good. Thank you, Heather. Emery, let's
Here's
start
Rashid,
with you.
that's good.
We start with
Okay, I'm Emery Campbell. I live on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. Former director of Penn Center. Retired now.
tired, really.
But still
Okay.
working hard.
Okay, Samuel.
Yes. I'm Samuel Pierre. I am currently in Haiti, Port-au-Prince, with my wife, and we have about 1.5 years here. It's a pleasure to be here, and I know Brother Winbush from Tennessee, Memphis, from Nashville. He brought me to Fisk University after the movie Amistad, and it's been a pleasure to be linked with him. I wrote a foreword on one of his books, and I am glad that we are tapping on resources like him.
Okay.
Great.
Gloria.
Yes, I'm Gloria Tinubu. I'm in Atlanta. I'm an economist and former professor at Spelman College, and doing some work with Tuskegee right now with Jerry Pennick.
Oh Lord.
All right, Wendell.
Jerry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, man, I'm glad Gloria's over there with you. You gonna thank the Lord. But tell us who you are.
I'm Jerry Pennick, retired from the Federation of Southern Cooperatives. I currently work at Tuskegee University over its rural policy initiative.
Who else is on? Just
Ernest Dunkley.
Ernest Dunkley.
Okay, Ernest. Yeah.
Hi, how y'all doing?
Good.
Ernest Dunkley here in Atlanta. Been here about 15 years now. Came from a whole lot of places to get here. Born in Brooklyn, news reporter, cameraman in the US, in Africa, and did some work in Central America. Anthropology is my classroom thing, and very pleased to meet you.
Who else do we have on? That's the only that I see.
Hello, I'm not on the video. I'm on the phone. Hassan Crockett. I live in North Carolina, and I'm Dean of Liberal Arts and Humanities at Livingstone College, HBCU, in Salisbury, North Carolina. And lived and worked in Atlanta for a long time. I was listening to our newest person, and we were in Atlanta during the same period of time. So I wonder if we crossed paths with the young lady, the young 64 young lady. We crossed paths because we were in Atlanta for quite some time. So I'm in North Carolina now, so we're doing work here.
So, Wendell, Hanifa.
Yes, Hanifa, I'm here in Atlanta as well with Project South. I'm study as a midwife. I feel like honored to be in the space with so many different people. I was brought in kind of late and I have missed a bit, but I look forward to learning more with you all.
All right, fine.
So there's Rashid Nuri. He's new to the group.
Oh,
hi, Rashid.
Is Rashid here?
Yeah,
Hi,
he
Rashid.
is. Tell us, Rashid, tell us about yourself. You have to put your sound on. You're muted.
There, is
Okay.
that better?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, greetings, everyone. Rashid Nuri, I'm in Atlanta. I've been traveling the world, been involved with agriculture development for over 50 years. And yeah, I know a few of you folks on here. Ernest and I met in Nigeria 30 years ago. I work with Heather. I do a show once a month with Heather where we talk about politics based around food production, food security, food self-sufficiency. I ran the Nation of Islam's farms back in the 70s. We had 13,000 acres then. I've twice built the largest farm in Atlanta metropolitan area through an organization I founded called Truly Living Well, Center for Natural Urban Agriculture. I worked for the Southern Cooperative Development Fund when there was a connection with the Federation many years ago. I guess that's enough. I've been around a while.
So Wendell, there's Allende.
Hello, Allende, please.
Yes, I work with Project South. Yeah, just a young guy. I've been working with nonprofit organizations and with Inside Movement from the Gullah Geechee, Sapelo, and of course my hometown, Atlanta. And I've been working with Project South for about the same amount of time, about 20 years. And I'm just here to serve. So thanks for having me.
So I don't know, Pamela's phone, who is that? Pamela's phone?
That's the friend. That's his friend.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I think, did Hank get on? Hank, did you?
Yes,
get on?
it's not showing up for some reason. It's just saying iPhone, but Hank is on.
Okay. All right.
And-
Is anybody else on that didn't
Wendell.
introduce themselves? Yes.
This is Vernon Oaks.
Okay.
So I live in DC and I'm from Bluefield, West Virginia, went to Bluefield State. I taught at Howard for 5 years and I did property management in DC. I stopped that. And now I'm looking at a couple blocks in Sandtown in Baltimore and have a radio show every week called Everything Co-op, talking about the cooperative business model. So I'm a young African-American male, 74 years.
Thanks for
all these young people.
Okay. Well, all you young people, before you, I know your bedtime is within the next 45 minutes.
That's
So,
right.
Hank, if you would introduce our guest this evening, we would appreciate that.
And could you remind people to, Wendell, once the guest has been introduced, if everyone could cut off mute their mics, that would make it better for us all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Okay.
Good
Did
evening,
we miss
everybody.
Go right ahead, Hank.
And let me apologize. I had to go over to Montgomery, and we were back out in an area called Pike Road, and so I just apologize for being late. You ought not to ever be late when you're going to introduce Dr. Winbush. But Dr. Winbush is a very special human being. Faye and I got to know him personally over the years, and he would come and participate in the bridge crossing Jubilee. And if I remember correctly, he also came to an Alabama New South meeting to share with us on slavery and some other matters. And if I remember correctly, he came down when we were running the Joe Gotta Go campaign to get rid of Joe Smitherman back in 2000. So he's a scholar, yes, but he's also a warrior. Dr. Winbush has some roots in Alabama. He didn't originate in Alabama, but he ended up going to Oakwood Community College, and I believe he taught there for a while, and then he taught at Alabama A&M for a while, and then he worked at Vanderbilt and worked at Fisk, and has been at Morgan State for years. But there are plenty of scholars, but there are not that many scholar warriors. One of the things that I appreciate greatly about Dr. Winbush is his commitment to lifting Black people above and beyond the conditions that we find ourselves in. And his books on how to deal with young Black men is an extraordinary book. And of course, tonight, he'll be talking about reparations, because that's an important part of this effort, this phone call, this Zoom call, and because this UN decade touches on a whole lot of things, but reparation is a part of every one of them. Whether we are talking about land, or whether we're talking about voting, or whether we're talking about economics or whatever. And so I'm just so glad to have Dr. Winbush. And of course, he's written one of the premier books dealing with reparations. And while I don't have the exact name of it, it said, should they pay? And if I was somewhere other than in this car, I think I would be able to see it. But he's just a great scholar and a great warrior. And I present Dr. Raymond Ray Winbush to make his presentation concerning reparation. Thank you, Dr. Winbush.
Thank you, Hank. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And two little personal things. Tell Faya to send the book. She'll know what I'm talking about.
Well, she can hear you.
Oh, Faya, send me the book that we were talking about.
She said that she reminded me that our internet at our law office has been down with 2 weeks, but she's gonna send it. They got it back up either the day or yesterday. I can't remember. So she'll send it.
Okay, no problem. And the second thing, it's good to see so many people that I didn't expect to see here. One is Samuel P.A., and he did the introduction to my first book, The Warrior Method. Samuel, I've got to send you a copy of the updated edition. I kept your prologue in it, so I'll send you an addition to it. And some of you may or may not know that Samuel is the great-grandson of Shinge Pia, the person that you know as Joseph Cinque, who was on the board of, or on board the Amistad when it took over back in the 1830s, 1839, I believe. And so he has a rich history of his great-grandfather, and it comes from a long line of warrior people going back, well over 180 years. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I was asked by Heather to give kind of a update of the reparations meeting right now. So I'm kind of glad that everybody here, knows about reparations. We were in Atlanta this weekend at a high-level meeting of people to deal with reparations in terms of an action plan, and met there for about 3 days. So I'm going to try to summarize like what has taken 400 years of our sojourn in this country in about 20 minutes, which is almost like picking up an elephant by the tail. But I'm going to try to do that. Heather, I'm going to try to, can I share the screen now? Heather. Heather.
Just a minute. Allende, I need to make him the host. So how do I do that? I should have
or
done
just
this
share
before.
the screen. Just hit the multiple on the screen share button. There should be a up arrow and you can share it.
Yeah. Yeah, just hold on a minute. My apology. Just a minute.
That's all right.
Share screen. Yeah. See if that works.
Let's see. Yeah, that does work. Okay, can you see that? Can everybody see that?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, good. I want to, kind of talk about where we are today in reparations, because again, it's a hot button issue. I remember 30 years ago when I was teaching at Vanderbilt, people were saying, you're going to do research on reparations? And people were laughing at me because they said, ain't nobody going to give, Black folk any reparations in this country. Randall Robinson, as you probably know, in 1999 wrote a book entitled The Debt. And Randy and I are good friends. He's living now in St. Kitts. He wrote a book about leaving America called Quitting America. And he and his wife Hazel live there right now. So he told me, we were doing a workshop up in Toronto, and he said, Ray, I wrote an essay about reparations, the debt. He said, you need to write a more empirical study about it. So I wrote the book and edited the book, Should America Pay? And so that was kind of an answer to his book, The Debt, Should America Pay? I think this one sentence summarizes reparations. Ralph Wiley, the late author, said, give me the free labor of one Black person for 1 year, I would be a rich man. Give me the free labor of a dozen Black people for 12 years, I would be a very rich man. Give me the free labor of millions of Black people for 250 years, I would be America. And I think that one phrase summarizes what reparations is all about. It's a major debt, as Randy says, and America owes it. And the idea of reparations, as I'll show you, has a lot of things to do with the debt that this country owes Black people. At the 2000 UN World Conference Against Racism in Durban, South Africa, I was there as well as several other people. Sam, were you there at that meeting at all? I don't know if you were.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I was in Durban.
In Durban. It was about 20,000 people at a 10-day conference. And everybody, when I say everybody, with a lot of leaders were there. Fidel Castro was there, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, all the members of the Congressional Black Caucus from this country. I mean, Danny Glover, there were just like everybody was at this thing who were interested in reparations. And it was the first time in many, many years that African people from around the globe all met with each other. And the biggest thing that, it was also the meeting where Colin Powell, rest his soul, he walked out of the meeting saying that the meeting was anti-Semitic. In reality, it wasn't anti-Semitic at all. It was just that the Palestinians were there. And in reality, the idea of reparations was something anathema to Europe, the United States, and Australia. Let me see if I can. Boy, I really skipped a lot with that one. Wait a minute. Just 1 second. Okay, so sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. There's a young Ray Winbush on the left there. And I think you may recognize the gentleman on the extreme right, Yasser Arafat. And the people, Adwa Ayatoro is right here. She's a leading reparations attorney and has written a lot about the issue of the legal aspects of reparations. So at the World Conference Against Racism, there were a bunch of people. Let's see if I can do this right. So here's some questions that are answered. Question: has any government apologized for its complicity in the transatlantic enslavement of Africans? The answer is yes, and somewhat. Benin, of all places, which was Dahomey at one time in 2003, issued an apology. Dahomey or Benin was probably one of the few countries in Africa that profited from the slave trade. One of the questions I always get, Hank, is did Black people enslave Black people? And I say, yeah, yes, they did. It was a small percentage, just like there were Jewish people at during the Holocaust. In fact, they called them Judenrats. They sentenced, Jews to the gas chamber. Or you could look at Native Americans scouting for Custer at the Little Bighorn. Or you have Black folk right now like Clarence Thomas, who is conspiring against Black people at the Supreme Court. All people at one level or another participate in their own oppression. It's not anything new. France apologized in 2001 somewhat. The Vatican, believe it or not, in 1993 apologized for the United States somewhat, the House of Representatives. Interesting enough, the Senate, as well as various states in the United States, all said that we will apologize for enslavement, but that does not mean that we will pay reparations for enslavement. So the apology came with a caveat. Has any group or corporation apologized for its complicity in transatlantic slave trade? Southern Baptist Convention did in 1995. Again, all of these places have apologized, but they haven't done anything in terms of restitution. It's like me knocking out the windows of your car, Heather, breaking them all, and I walk up to you, and I broke them. And then I said, I'm sorry, your windows were broke. Well, you want more than an apology. You want to have me repair the car or reparations for that car. Muammar Gaddafi said European nations should apologize for the enslavement of Africans in 1999 before he was assassinated. The Etland Life Insurance Company, JP Morgan Chase, actually paid reparations in 2005 in the state of Louisiana and gave $5 million for its complicity in the slave trade. Wachovia Bank, which is now Wells Fargo, in 2005 as well. And the Archbishop of New Orleans apologized for enslavement in 2011. Have any private corporations? Yes, JP Morgan Chase, as I mentioned, and Wachovia Wells Fargo both paid $15 million, which I call a down payment on reparations. Have any nations paid reparations for enslavement of Africa? The answer is a resounding no. No nation. Right now, Namibia is negotiating with Germany right now for the Herero genocide that took place in the early part of the 20th century, when some 65,000 Herero people were literally wiped out. And some people call that the 20th century's first Holocaust. In fact, the Germans practice, if you please, on the Herero people of Namibia, and later on, of course, did the Holocaust on Jewish people during World War II. Has any state in the United States paid reparations? No, but the first state to establish a reparations task force took place a little over a year ago. Shirley Weber, who she and I worked together in National Council for Black Studies. She was a California Assemblywoman, and she is now heading the Legislative Black Caucus of California and is now head of a commission. We expect California to be the first state to pay reparations. And some of you may know, yeah.
I'm sorry, Ray. I taught with her at San Diego State
in
1972. We were both first year in the Afro-American Studies department at San Diego State.
She's a great
sister.
Woman.
She's really good.
Told me she was going to go into politics. And I said, why you want to get in that nasty game? But she got in it, and she's doing great work there, completely great work. Here's Robin Ruth Simmons, a young sister. Many of you have heard of what has happened in Evanston, Illinois. She was an alderwoman there, and some people have called her the Harriet Tubman of implementing reparations. She got a bill passed in the Evanston City Council to set aside $10 million for housing grants to American Africans who were discriminated with their housing from 1909 to 1969. And already they are paying out reparations for that. So any cities passed resolutions? Yes, several. Asheville, North Carolina, Burlington, Vermont, believe it or not. Washington, D.C., I am doing some research right now. We're publishing it in about 2 months in DC, and we're going to be looking at how much DC owes reparation. I wish I had time to go in some of this stuff because I'm going to rush through it so we have questions. Providence or Rhode Island, and as I told you earlier, I mentioned California. The CARICOM lawsuit, this is again a global, which is in, well, the CARICOM is a consortium of 15 member nations in the Caribbean, and there's a list of them. These islands and nations have all said they are going to sue their former colonial so-called masters, you know, for what they did to them. You know, Sir Hilary Beckles, who's the chairperson of CARICOM and has been leading the movement for reparations in the Caribbean, he and I gave a workshop in Scotland, of all places, a few years ago. And Hillary says something I never will forget. He said that basically what Black folk have been doing, not only in this country, but all over the world, Europe, South America, the Caribbean, on the continent, we've been cleaning up white folks' mess. We've been cleaning up diabetes. We have been cleaning up illiteracy, obesity, all of these things that have occurred to us. I saw a map today of the United States, and it was published in the New York Times, and all of the places in this country where there is polluted air, I mean severe pollution, are in Black, brown, and indigenous communities, all of them. None of them are in the suburbs. Some of you are familiar down in Louisiana with Cancer Alley. They have an actual name of a street down there called vinyl chloride. That's the name of the street, which is a known carcinogen. So we've been cleaning up people's mess for 500 years, and it's simply time for them to pay. The CARICOM action plan has 10 points. I'm going to run through these. They want a full formal apology from the European nations. They want repatriation. There's some Black folk, especially in the Caribbean, who said, look, I don't want reparation. I just want a one-way ticket to Africa. I want to repatriate, especially the Rastafarian brothers and sisters. They want somebody to come back. They want to go back to Africa and simply live there. Another one, they want the Indigenous Peoples Development Program. When so-called Columbus, which was probably the worst thing that happened in the past 600 years to people, he wiped out the Arawak Indians in Jamaica in a period of 25 years. They are now extinct. And he did it primarily with syphilis and diseases that the Arawak people never even heard of. Cultural institutions. You ever notice that museums are usually not located in Black communities around this country? White people, I went to visit the Louvre in Paris a few years ago, and they had this, you know, all these, that's where the Mona Lisa is. I thought the Mona Lisa was real big. It's only about that big. And in the, you know, in the Louvre, which is the biggest museum on earth, they had this exhibit called Early Depictions of Jesus. And when I went down into the basement, because that's where it was, you know, they had these early depictions of Jesus from the earliest point all the way up to the 6th century. Jesus was Black, and I don't want to get into that, but he was a brother. And I ain't talking about no man of color, he was Black. And then he slowly evolves into being white. by the 6th century. It's almost like Michael Jackson did, that he just evolved into being white. And the cultural institutions, not only in the Caribbean, but in Africa, were simply destroyed. Our music was appropriated. Some of you may have read a few weeks ago, one of the Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones said that he was Black and that he didn't steal anything from us. And the Rolling Stones music is all from Black folk. Again, I ain't got time to get into some of this. Public health, we talked about diabetes. All of these things have an issue in how the transatlantic slave trade destroyed our communities. The institute that I run in Morgan, we did a study about 2 years ago, and we found out not one Whole Foods restaurant, Whole Foods supermarket, which is now owned by Amazon, not one of them is located in a Black community throughout the United States. We have unhealthy food in our communities. Many of you are familiar with food deserts and so forth. See if I can get to the next one. And then we need psychological rehabilitation. Well, let me get, I did it again. Let's see. Sorry about that. I'm going to go for a few more minutes and then we will be through. And so the European nations are being sued right now. The CARICOM nations are suing Holland, the United Kingdom, and France for reparations. So illiteracy is a part of their plan as well to deal with it. The African Knowledge Program, the late Ron Walters, who was a political science here in Maryland, said that we always talk, how did he put it? He said, we always talk about when we became Americans. What we need to talk about is when we stop being Africans. And I think that's a key thing, the idea of how we have lost connection to our historical roots. Psychological rehabilitation, the CARICOM said, Lil Wayne doesn't need any money for reparations, but he needs psychological reparations, like Clarence Thomas or like this other sister, I can't think of her name, Stacey Dash. I mean, these people are very confused.
Candace Owens.
Candace Owens, another good example of people who need psychological reparations. I talk a lot about this in Should America Pay? Technology transfer, something else that was right. We were doing some work in Tanzania a few years ago, and we found out when the British left Tanzania, when the French left places in West Africa, that they just ripped out the technology, just, the street lights, and people, the highest rate right now on earth of fatal accidents are on the African continent. And that's because the technology was taken away when the colonial powers left the country. And finally, debt cancellation, which I don't even have to talk about. I always talk about the GLASS model, that there's 5 groups right now that need to be involved with reparations: grassroots organizations, legislators, attorneys, scholars, and students. GLASS model during the civil rights movement with places like SCLC, SNC, SNCC, and so forth. Legislature were out, Adam Clayton Powell, attorneys, Charles Hamilton, I don't know why I got W.B. Du Bois. There were scholars, Charles Johnson, John Hope Franklin, students, Kwame Ture, Willie Ricks, and those people. And for reparations, we need the same thing. Examples of grassroots organizations are in COBRA, National Black United Front, the Indaba Movement, Republic of New Africa, the Malcolm X Grass Movement, and the Global African Congress. Legislatures. Right now, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is pushing for reparations. I found out something very disturbing when I was in Atlanta this past weekend. I told Mark Thompson of MSNBC, who was there, and we've been friends for many, many years, And Mark said that it wasn't Nancy Pelosi holding up HR 40 in the House to bring it to the floor. She said she wanted to bring it to the floor last summer. The person who is holding up the vote on the floor is a guy by the name of James Clyburn of South Carolina.
I am
And
not surprised. I am not surprised.
You're not, Gloria. I was. A black man holding up reparations. That was just out. I mean, it's just, so she wants to bring it to a vote, but he doesn't. We have 208 votes right now in the House that are absolutely committed. You only need 218. And most votes don't come to the floor unless they, at 200. Most people bring a vote to the floor with 200 votes. We've got 208 and only need 10 rather. Attorneys, Lionel Baptiste, I mentioned Adjo Ayatoro, scholars, Ron Walters, Richard America, Joy DeGroot, Conrad Will, rest his soul, one of my good friends, Marimba Ini down there in Atlanta. I think what I'm gonna do is stop here. And because I got some more, but I don't want to, have this long conversation. And what we'll do, okay, I'm back. Can you see me? Yeah, let's ask some questions because I could go on and on about this stuff and I don't want to do that. I want y'all to ask some questions about where the state of everything is now. Y'all need to write James Clyburn. That's for one thing, for sure.
And the reason why I'm not surprised, my brother, is I'm from South Carolina.
Oh,
and I
really?
lived there for the past 8 years. I just recently moved back to Atlanta recently during the COVID pandemic. And he was one of the reasons why that Southeast Crescent or the Black Belt Crescent Commission hadn't taken off. Until now, he had Biden to appoint his daughter to be the co-chair of it. And now it's moving forward. So I am not at all surprised. I am not at all surprised.
I just, I'm always concerned, and that's a mild term, about how Black people sometimes will block other Black folk. Like, in my city, Ben Carson, when he was head of HUD under Trump, and, he came to Baltimore and just did all types of stuff. But I just don't see how, that even as a psychologist, that has always puzzled me about, it's not a story, when the 4 little girls were killed in Birmingham in 1963, 4 blocks away from there was a young sister who's one of the girls were her friend, and her name was Angela Davis, who grew up. Was 7 blocks from there was another sister that grew up and knew one of the girls, and her name was Condoleezza Rice. And these 2 young ladies lived just a few blocks apart, but they grew up totally different. And I guess as a psychologist, I've always wondered what makes a Malcolm X as opposed to a Clarence Thomas.
Damage.
Yeah, a lot of damage. Reparations are needed for that.
Yeah. This is Jerry Penny, Ray.
Yeah. I worked with you, Jerry, back in, weren't you at the Southern Cooperative?
Yeah, we worked back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, remember we did that study on Torn from the Land with the Associated Press. Yeah, I remember that.
Can we get a copy of that PowerPoint presentation?
Sure, I can send it. I'll send it to Heather.
Okay.
It's some more to it, so but I just cut it off a little bit early.
My question was, there are a lot of definitions for reparations, a lot of people going one way and a lot of people going another way. How do you see us all coming together with one concise call for reparations?
Well, I don't. To be very honest with you, there's a group I had it in the program called ADO. Some of you may have heard about the American Descendants of Slave. It's a group of Black folk that are pushing, saying the only thing we need to do is to cut a check. And I think reparations takes a variety of forms. You know, some people will get checks. Some people deserve land. What if Black people for a period of 30 years didn't pay any type of taxes, real estate taxes, sales tax, income tax, payroll tax? That's a form of reparation. Housing, as my friend Robin up in Evanston is doing, she believes it takes the form of housing. So there's a variety of forms. And I think one reason why ADOS has gotten popular, particularly among young people, and there's a guy, one of my colleagues at Duke, Sandy Darity, he's been saying all we want is money. And I think the reason why Sandy is getting so much publicity because white folks know that if they get, you know, $17 trillion and Black folk have that, they can get 2/3 of it back. And,
Yes.
you know,
in less than a year.
And I hate to say that, you know,
and that's because we don't own productive assets. We don't own businesses where we can capture those dollars. And for me, if we're not doing that first, creating those systems in place that will capture those dollars that we spend,
right,
we're going to be broke almost instantly because it's going to go back. We have nowhere to take it but back to them.
Yeah, I mean,
they'll be richer because of it.
Well, and that's why I think they're pushing this whole thing about just cut a check. What's his name? Robert Johnson, the guy that used to own BET. He says just give every Black person, you know, a baby that's 18 months old, all the way up to all of us on this call. Say give them a check for $350,000 and be done with affirmative action and all of that. And the fear that I have, I mean, I got a friend of mine, he kind of cynically said, Ray, if you give Black folk reparations on Monday, the Cadillac dealer is going to be rich on Tuesday. I don't say that, but a lot of Black folk do say
it's the truth, because we the money is not going to circulate in our community. We don't have the businesses that will get rich from our spending. We don't have them.
And that's why I think that money is one form of reparations. Is not the only form of reparation. When we did that study, Brother Pinnock down with the Associated Press, there was so much, Black folk in this country in 1910 owned 10 million acres of land. We're now down to about, the last I found was 2.5 million. So our land has been taken away from us. And you know, so it's, you know, just giving Black folk a check. I mean, some Black folks should do that, but not all of it, because it's going to come right back to white community. Because as you said, Gloria, we don't have the institutions that keep the money in our community a lot of time.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. Winbush, let me just, you said 10 million. We actually had 18 million acres of land.
Okay, 18, yeah.
Just a.
Okay, but what we got now, about 3?
Less than 2.
Less than 2.
Yes, sir.
Well, that shows you something right there. And this is still going on in big cities through the form of gentrification. You know, who was that dimension? They're working in Sandtown, Winchester. Did somebody say that?
Yeah, Vernon Oaks here. Yep.
Yeah, Vernon, you know that's being gentrified right now. That's where Freddie Gray was killed back in 2015. A few miles from Morgan State, and that's being gentrified. You know,
we're trying to get 3 blocks and put in some affordable housing, limited equity housing co-ops, and some worker-owned co-ops, working with a nonprofit there. That's our goal, so that we can keep part of it.
And we need that for sure. Definitely for sure.
So what
I've heard 20 million and 30 million when I talked to the Federation of Southern Crossroads, how much land that we had in 1910. I've heard 20 million, 30 million, 18, you said 10, whatever, but we only have 2.5 or less. And the different ways that they have taken the land is interesting. So Gloria, we will spend it and they will take the money.
That's right.
They'll put laws in place to take it. So yeah. How we get the education out there where folks, and this is why I like my radio show, Everything Co-op, is to teach folks on how you work together come together, create community, and solve community problems, and how you end up making money and then keeping that money, deciding what to do with it, how to do it. And this is what worker co-ops are doing right now. They said that 60% of worker co-ops in the last 10 years have been people of color, and mostly women. So how do we get more of that happening?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can add a little. Brother was talking about how we lost that land. You know, I worked with Mike Espy at the Department of Agriculture back in the 90s. And we made some changes there and ended up costing Espy his job as well as my own. But there were a couple of studies that were done. One was called the Miller Report. And the Miller Report proved beyond any shadow of a doubt the discrimination that was done by the Department of Agriculture. And what's so interesting, there was an opinion that was written by Walter Dillinger, who was an assistant attorney general. And it said that the Secretary of Agriculture had the authority to settle all the discrimination suits against it, unlimited funds. They buried that report. They buried the Miller Report so that they could, and they ended up with the Pigford suits, which could have been settled as a class action, but they made those farmers settle individually. They lost that. But you know, the committees in each of the counties are the ones that had authority. And there was a lot of very simple but insidious things that would happen to the Black farmers in particular. And let me just give you just one simple example. Most farmers want to get their supplies for the next season in February so they can plant them in March and April. So that means they got to get their money from the banks and other lending institutions in January and February so they can buy. They would give it to the Black farmers who were getting money, wouldn't get theirs until April and May. So to try to make a crop at that time was very, very difficult, but they got the money borrowed, put in the crop, and they don't make a crop, then they can take the land back that was put up for collaterals. I can spend hours giving you examples of how that was done. But yeah, we need this food self-sufficiency, food security. Whoever controls your food controls you. We need to get that land back and grow. And that has been the essence of my work over these years.
Good work. It's good work.
You know, one piece.
I have one question, Dr. Winbush. Well, two questions. One, first, are you related to Judge Dexter Winbush of Gainesville, Georgia?
All Winbushes are related. I just don't know how. So I'm sure I am, but I don't know how. I'm Angela Winbush. Some of you may remember, she's my second cousin. So, you know, I don't know, maybe so. Allende, you had a question.
Hello?
Yeah, I was wondering. I was wondering how, in terms, I just think about strategy for our people. And one book I thought that was extraordinary in laying out a lot of the elements that you all are talking about right now is Souls of Black Folks. It's so brilliantly constructed piece of just in terms of literature, but in the elements that it deals with, right? The psychological piece, right? Double consciousness. Like we're talking about, and the book ain't but this big, right? But it hits everything, and even including some of those more sophisticated elements around economics, right? And so then he gets this opportunity to share with us the banking, right? We're taxing ourselves for 2 years. The Congress they're not even touching the money that we have. But I think one of the key pieces that we're not bringing into these newer generations is we also had the skill. We had the lion's share of the skills.
Right.
They were done. They were bringing over people straight off of a boat, right? They ain't never did none of this stuff before. We generations doing this stuff, which gets us back to the Gullah Geechee, right? And so, and also takes us back to double consciousness. Because what happened is that we were tricked into believing that we were not valuable, that our intellect was of no value.
Well,
so I wonder how strategically, so my question ultimately is, how do we begin to have a strategic conversation about what we had that we can't necessarily get from other folks, but we're gonna have to share with each other, like a lot of the pieces that you're doing right now?
Well, you know, you're absolutely right. I mean, the one book that all Black folks should read is W.B. Du Bois' is Souls of Black Folk, especially the third chapter, which is entitled of Mr. Booker T. Washington and Others, because, you know, Du Bois in 1903 set forth the whole premise of the psychological damage of the transatlantic slave trade, proposed an economic development plan. I think there's nothing, as I said in Warrior Method, there is really nothing else you can do research on Black folk. We have the information right now. The issue is the will to implement it. And usually there's a gatekeeper at the door, and I keep, you know, being critical of him, like James Clyburn for reparations, like Clarence Thomas on the one person. I mean, we see two white people in Congress holding back things right now. Joe Manchin of West Virginia, and that woman, what's her name? Cinema out in Arizona. What Black folk have to do right now, Ralph Riley wrote a book about it called What Black People Need to Do Now. And one thing we need to do right now is know our own history. I mean, and if I could, as I always say, if I could wave a magic wand over Africans all over the world, is, you know, read 30 minutes a day something about Black folk. So, and Malcolm said, and I agree with him, you know, everybody's favorite saying of Malcolm is by any means necessary. That's important. But my favorite saying by Malcolm is when he says, you cannot organize a sleeping people. You can't organize a sleeping people. If the house is on fire and you run in and you don't wake them up before you get them out, they're going to die. So we have to wake up through education, through politics, through the arts, you know, by any means necessary, if you please. We have to wake our people up. And sometimes that's very difficult for us to do. I'm off my soapbox.
Well, I have another question.
I have another question, a couple of questions. One, are you, Dr. Winbush, related to Judge Dexter Winbush of Gainesville, Georgia?
I don't know. I said earlier, I
He is
really don't know.
determined to find somebody that you are related to.
I'm related
I know,
to Angela.
we determined. You related. All Black folks look alike, so you probably related to somebody.
I'm related to, you remember Renee and Angela? I'm related to Angela Winbush. She's my cousin. Up in, what's his name? Up in Chicago, I got a bunch of relatives. So, you know, but I'm sure I am, but I don't know how.
Okay, and then the second point is how is, because I was a member of Cobra years ago, how are they doing in the Atlanta area?
Boy, that's a big old question. And Cobra's in a lot of trouble right now. And, you know, I could go into that, you know, the MacArthur Foundation.
No, you don't have to.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you don't have to. I know we had struggles back, you know, a while ago. So, but I just knew, you know, they were really pioneering initially about reparations.
They were. MacArthur Foundation recently gave them $1.5 million. And I always say, if you give, you know, food to a starving person, they're going to fight for it. And that's what's going on right now. During the 2020 demonstrations with Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, a lot of these corporations gave money to Black organizations, and many of them are still fighting over that money. And I'm not trying to say, because I ain't hardly rich, but $1.5 million to an organization is not that much money.
No,
And
it's
we're
not.
fighting over it right now. There's been a lot of resignations. Jeremiah
man.
Wright and me recently resigned from this group called IBW 21. And it's a long, bad story right now. That's all I can. I'll leave it at that right now.
Okay. And then finally, one more thing. Today, everyone, is the November the 10th in 1898 was the day that they bombarded and attacked Wilmington, North Carolina.
Right.
We're talking about reparations. Today was the day that it was one of the cities that was attacked by white supremacists in 1890.
Yeah.
Brother Ray, is there a place do you have that presentation in any video form? I would love to see the whole presentation.
I can send it to Hannah because the whole presentation is about 3/4. I only did about 3/4 of it, but it has.
I know
yeah.
I know you were going to send the PowerPoint, but I was wondering in your delivery, do you have it anywhere where it's on a video where you're delivering it?
Oh yeah, there's some stuff on YouTube.
Okay.
You just plug my name into YouTube and there's some stuff on there about reparations. I did, you may not recognize me because I was quite young, but I did a C-SPAN interview a few years ago, and I kind of lay out what reparations are on C-SPAN as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question. This is Jeff.
Okay.
Gloria.
Okay, you guys got to stop
Gloria
dominating the
Brother
floor.
Pinnick,
This is your
I think
last
Gloria.
question for a
No,
guy.
go.
I'm a gal too. I'm Gertrude. I'm a woman too.
Okay, Gertrude, hurry up.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gertrude.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I don't know how much you know about this group, Brother Winbush. We are a group that came together around the UN decade for people of African descent.
Yes.
And we have study groups that are working on different issue areas. And one of the areas that we will be looking at is reparations. And so I guess my question for you is, how can a group like this engage with the process to, get things moving further along the way? And how can we use the UN decade, which comes to an end, is it 2023 or 2024?
2024.
2024.
Right,
How
right.
can we use these next 2 years to highlight the issue of reparations? And how can we use the UN to further our objectives around reparations?
Well, one thing you can do, and I've been telling groups this, is to draft a resolution to the United Nations, UN High Commissioner on Human Rights. And this group, put together a statement with several signatories and send it to them. The UN actually pays attention to stuff like that coming from grassroots organizations. That's one thing that you could do. The second thing, I'll send to Heather a list, and this is an immediate thing, of Democratic Congress people who have not signed on to HR 40. That's on a national level. But I think that it's just as important, because we find that the way the United States goes, so goes the rest of the African world. So I would draft a statement from this group and send it to the United Nations. I would also, to be honest with you, I would try to get NGO status as a group with the United Nations, because a lot of people, the United States, especially under Trump, kind of downplayed the role of the United States, United Nations, but it still has a lot of influence on local policies throughout the world, and especially, and then another thing, about reparations. You know, I always tell Black folk that every one of us needs to have a Pan-African project, just something that's dealing directly with Africa as a form of reparations. What I do, for example, I give a certain amount of money every month to buying malaria nets because malaria still remains the biggest killer of Black children on earth. It's not AIDS, it's not TB or anything else. It's malaria. And I think we should all have some type of Pan-African project. And then the other thing this group can do is write local officials, and this is again a national issue, but write local officials, and Black folk need to become one issue people. Like you see white people doing one issue people on abortion, on saving the whales, on now they're talking about critical race theory and don't even know what they're talking about, but they become one issue thing. We should ask people who are running for office, do you support reparations? And if they hesitate or say, well, I support better jobs, no, do you support reparations? And you can say specifically HR 40. I think that needs to be done as well. Those are just some of the few ideas I have.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I want to hog the floor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brother Penny.
No, you almost asked my question too, but when you just from your perspective, Dr. Winbush, when you talk about reparations, do you see it as an issue for Africans in America, or an issue for Africans, people of African descent all around the world? Do you decouple those two things?
No, I don't. The reparations struggle has always been a Pan-African project. People, the only thing in my travels around the world, the only political issue that all Black folk agree on, I don't care if they're in Australia with the Aboriginal people, in South America, the Caribbean, this country, Europe, whatever, they all say that the European nations and America and Australia owe us something. And the thing about reparations, they're just as American as apple pie. You know, Native Americans have gotten reparations. Japanese people have gotten reparations. The New Zealanders have gotten reparations. Jews have gotten reparations. We're the only major group on this planet that hasn't gotten reparations for the greatest crime against humanity in world history. You know, and it's because, and you know, I'll get white folks asking me stuff like, I did an interview at NPR yesterday or the day before yesterday, whenever. White folks will ask me stuff like, well, you gonna give reparations to Oprah Winfrey and Jay-Z and, you know, all of that. Look, when Jewish people got reparations, they didn't ask, are you gonna give reparations to Steven Spielberg? You know, they gave reparations. It's a crime. So I see it as a global movement. It always has been.
This is Heather. I just want to mention that, Ray, you were talking about people reading things. I want to mention a book that's good to get. Actually, it's one that Rashid Nouri just came out with. It's called Growing Out Loud, The Journey of a Food Revolutionary. So it's wonderful, talking about the whole history of the growth of food and so forth all over the place. So I just want to mention that. If anybody wants more information, you can contact me, or you can also go to his website at thenurigroup.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the most effective strategy that those groups used that received reparations from the United States?
Well, you know, it's funny, under that extremely radical left-wing President Ronald Reagan, the Japanese Americans got reparations. We met with the lawyers of them a few years ago. They pressed for reparations on a level of, it went through Congress. You know, HR 40, well, at that time it was another HR back in 1988. HR 40 was hung up in Congress from 1989 by the late John Conyers up until April 14th of this year. And I know this sounds real, but white folks just don't want to give us anything. I mean, I wish I could say something deeper than that. But white folks historically, whenever they have seen Black gains, they think it's somehow taking away from them. So if you look at the Civil War, there was violence after the Civil War, the Ku Klux Klan. When Obama was president, there was, we're going to give you Donald Trump. You know, after the Civil Rights Movement, there was violence. So every time, they didn't feel that about the Native American people when they granted them reparation, because number one, they had committed genocide against the Native American people. They didn't feel that about the Japanese Americans because their population at that time was relatively small, but with us, they see us, part of this history. That I wish I could, but I don't know if you're familiar with the 1619 Project. All of you should read the 1619 Project. And Heather Nicole Jones, she has one thesis, and she says that racism and slavery were integrated into the history of the United States. That's all she says. That's all she said. Is that false? No, it's true. You can't talk about a history of the United States without talking about race. So there's resistance to the 1619 Project. There's a resistance to the perversion of Derek Bell's critical race theory. And I knew Derek Bell, he would roll over in his grave right now if he, what is being called critical race theory, he would know what it was. So the one thing, I mean, I just think sometimes, Neely Fuller, I don't know if you know who Neely Fuller is, but Neely Fuller says that most white people hate Black people. The reason why most white people hate Black people is because they are not Black. He said, if you know this, need to know little else. Now, I think that might be, he didn't say all white people, he said most Black people. I mean, most white people. And sometimes I'm amazed at how the hatred of Black people is manifest. When I was driving back, real quick, I don't want to, but when I was driving back from Atlanta, I stopped in this, this station in someplace in South Carolina, your state again, Gloria. And
a week ago? This is recent.
Less than a week ago. It was last Sunday.
Okay.
And it was 3 white people in line, and then the counter woman who was a white woman, and she put everybody's money back in their hands. Everybody. When she got to me, I was buying some bubble gum and a pack of M&Ms, my peanuts, my favorite. And she just threw the money down on the counter at me. Those are those, what some people call microaggressions. Macroaggressions is the idea of not paying reparations. They owe us. So we got to just deal with that. So, and we have to take into consideration whatever we do with reparations or anything else in our community is going to be pushback. I'm sorry for going so long. Gloria, you're muted.
Gloria, you're muted. Gloria's muted.
Well, Ray, while we're waiting, I want you to know Emory Campbell is also from South Carolina. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You got a different kind of state,
right, Emory?
Brother.
I don't know what happened to.
Gloria, I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay, I don't know what happened to my visual, but this is my question. Sometimes I hear white folks say, well, with slavery and the Civil War, they took away our property and they didn't repair us. We didn't get reparations for our property. What is your response to that? Because that's what a lot of Southerners say, that the slaves were taken away, their property was taken away from them, and they should have gotten some reparations, even though I understand some did. But what is your response to that?
Well, I mean, if you look at December of 1865, General Sherman's order, field order number 15, which called for the 40 acres. It didn't call for a mule. That was a given. It would be like me, Wendell, selling you a car and you assume that it has an engine in it. If you sold somebody 40 acres of land, they had a mule. But long story short, between December 15th, 1864, and April 14th of 1865, when Lincoln was assassinated, 400,000 acres were given in South Carolina and the Georgia Sea Islands. They were actually given to us. When Johnson became president, Andrew Johnson, he said the people that had suffered the most, from enslavement were the slave owners. So he gave those 400,000 acres back. And right now, who is that lives on Hilton Head?
Emory.
Emory. That's some of the richest land on earth. And if you read, I think, the second paragraph of Field Order 15, it says that white people should not be allowed on the island.
Right.
It actually says that. But, that's with history, white man speak with forked tongue. That's all.
And also,
okay.
You're going to say anything
Gary,
about
they were
that?
offered reparations and turned it down.
Say what?
I was saying before the Civil War, white landowners were offered reparations if they didn't succeed.
Yeah, and then there's this whole retelling of history, Brother Pinnock, of like it wasn't the Civil War, it was the lost cause, the war between the states, all of this retelling of history that, again, Nicole deals with in the 1619 Project. Read the 1619 Project. It's the best history of America that's ever been written, in my opinion. You're on mute, Gloria.
Okay, I'm sorry. Another good book is The Shaping of Black America by Lerone Bennett.
Lerone Bennett, and his book Before the Mayflower.
Yeah, right. But that one on the shaping of Black America, that's a good one that tells a real good full history of the whole, how America was just a land of the hunted and unfree.
That's right.
Of all people, that this was a business venture.
That's right.
And that the English people gave a monopoly to a few folks, and we've never gotten away from that model in this country. We're still, the majority of people are still dependent on a small minority of people for their living and livelihood. That has never changed since the inception of this country.
That's right, and it's even worse today.
It's even worse. The inequality is even worse than it was then.
That's right.
And that's it. When they came through and destroyed the Freedmen's Bureau, they came after the bank and us taxing ourselves first.
That's right.
They didn't forget the land. They didn't want, we got to get you on. We're going to get you on this economic thing, because you can use that, all of that building and all of those brilliant Black men did that. So I just say that because it just seems like a great starting point, right? And when you play chess, if you don't protect your move, it doesn't matter that you moved there. It wouldn't matter that we got reparations if we don't protect the move.
That's
exactly.
right.
We got to protect. Right. That has to come first. Protecting the move becomes first before you move.
That's right.
You got to figure out how we're going to protect it. If we don't protect it, we can forget about it and it'll be gone.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. I'd like to
I have a question.
Interject.
I have a question. We're speaking about the Sea Islands, and which island, and this is so ironic, did the Federal Reserve Bank, they found the Federal Reserve Bank on one of the islands. I wanted to say St. Helena. This is when the major bankers snuck down to, I think in 1913, I think. I'm not sure on those dates, but what was so ironic was that they went to one of the islands and in secret, and that's where they found the Federal Reserve Bank. And I think, and you're talking, I had to look it up, and I think the land that was once, we were talking about that today, the Sea Islands, I have a student in my class whose people are from the Sea Islands, and they, you know, we call these South Carolinians, no, they call them Geechees. And she was tracing her family back for generations, and how important that whole culture is to our history. And then at one point, I think back in the 40s, they owned more land in the Sea Islands, Black people did, than anywhere else in the United States. And don't quote me on that, but I think that's, yeah.
Right. That's right. Okay, folks.
I'd like to, before we close down, I'd just like to interject, because I've been off and on throughout the whole meeting. I had other meetings to go to, but I know the last time we met, well, the last time I was on the call, and I talked about the conference on Confederation and Human Rights Remedies, and I also talked about what was then the upcoming Spirit of Mandela Tribunal. I'm hoping that everyone had a chance to attend virtually the tribunal. And if not, you can still read the outcome of the tribunal. And it's like the work we need to do is to work with the outcomes of the tribunal. It can lead us to work. It's an organizing opportunity that will lead us to work, that will put us in place to protect whatever gains we make in the future. And like as Brother Ray Winbush is pointing out, it's a global situation, and the outcomes of the reparations is for us to position ourselves in this global situation and understand where we fit in and where the United States fits out, and that we need to recognize with this situation going on in Glasgow. I mean, they're actually positioning themselves not to give anything back to anybody anywhere in the world, and positioning themselves that the world will have, that they will be used up all the resources in about 200 years, and it's not going to matter much unless we struggle very hard for our survival and for the disruption of what they have been doing and the disruption of what they're continuing to do. There'll be no reparations. There'll be no planet. There'll be no nothing. So at this point, the struggle for reparations is the struggle for survival, and we have to take that very, very seriously. It's the actual struggle for survival. If we want our grandchildren to be, if we want our great grandchildren to come into existence, we need to struggle hard to bring another level of condition in our reality right now. And that has to be, and part of that has to be, a big part of that has to be the destruction of the Western reality.
I agree.
Folks, it was Jekyll Island, 1913 Jekyll Island.
Yeah, Jekyll Island.
I just want to ask if Emery wants to add anything here. Emery? Emery Campbell, talking about the beach or whatever?
Not really. We're still Geechees.
Gullah Geechees.
Yes, we are. We're still Gullah and we're still Geechee.
Yeah.
I've been down to Sapelo Island before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm married into a Sapelo Island family.
Is that
a
right?
Sapelo Cherokee family. Yeah.
That's right.
Yes, Brother Raymond Winbush, thank you very much for your presentation. And, you know, we all have our little spheres of influence. I also got married to a woman from Mississippi Delta. I was at Mississippi Valley State for 5 years, developed an environmental health program, public health program, and I saw all these catfish farms all over Mississippi. And I tried to convince my brothers and sisters, I say, hey, let's take some of these catfish ponds and replicate it in Sierra Leone or Liberia. And to this day, I'm still working on something, trying to convince Gloria, Emery, and Allende, and now Brother Rashid. Let's think of a project that we can link with Liberia and Sierra Leone, not the whole Africa, because there's a lot to do. But let's concentrate our energy on those two countries and see how we can harvest a synergy from those. Like I said earlier in our discussion last year or this year, the UN, the United Nations, was broke several years ago, about 15 years ago. But when the war started in Liberia, while we were fighting, UN planes were taking the diamonds and the gold and the bauxite and other things. Now they have plenty of money. We can still use some of that money to achieve our goal of reparation. So I'd like for us to continue to think about it. Let us stretch our hands to maybe those two African countries and see how that can enhance our position for a negotiable reparation for the majority of us.
Okay.
I just want to say one final thing, since people are talking about who they're married to and connected to. Well, I'm married to a Nigerian for 45 years. So I have, that's my major African project.
All right.
Well,
okay, Gloria.
I've got a lot of relatives in Nigeria that we're constantly, working with, supporting, educating, housing. We've had a project for 45 years, so I've been involved.
It will take, sometimes it will take 50 years. It might take 100 years.
Well, our children will take over and our grandchildren. We have 4 children.
Right, there you go.
5 grandchildren. We'll pass the baton, but yes, I'm open to working, for as long as I can to do whatever I can. So I'm open to whatever you're suggesting, my brother.
All right, Gloria.
So speaking of wives, my wife grew up in the lower 9 ward, my late wife, in New Orleans, and her parents talked Gullah. She said she could understand it, but she could not speak it. And we were in Sierra Leone for our church trying to get lease a land. And we were in the Department of Agriculture's office, and he was on the phone with somebody, and she started laughing. He told us to get out. So when we went outside, she said that he was talking about the chief's big butt. And so she understood what he was saying. And of course, I was just sitting there that dumb and happy. I had no idea. But when we went back in, after he pulled us back in, he was wide open and friendly before he was pushed off. And we got the lease because of the language and the connection with the language between New Orleans and Sierra Leone.
That's good. That's good.
Well, I want to mention also, just before we go here, that both Ernest Dunkley and Rashid, as they mentioned both earlier, spent time in Nigeria as well. So we have a lot of representation on the African continent, that's for sure.
Well, let me just say,
go ahead.
I think we're 30 minutes over here. We don't want to infringe on anybody's time here, but I just want to say to you, Brother Winbush, how much we appreciate, deeply appreciate you sharing this time with us.
Yes.
Will
you come back again? I'd like to hear more.
Sure, I'll give the second half next time.
Okay. So this is a ragtag group of folks here.
This is a good group, though. I can tell.
Yeah, good at that, no doubt about it. And,
right.
we just are deeply indebted to you for the university education you gave us this evening.
Well, thank you. Thank
Give
you.
us, we can take
ple-
some good marching orders from what's happening.
Yeah, pleasure for me to be here. Keep pushing. I'm going to send to Heather the presentation as well as a list of the Democrats who have not voted for HR 40, and I'll send their phone numbers as well as their percentage of Black people in their district. I'll send all of that to Heather.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Great, great.
Absolutely.
Because you know what, we've got not only a Southern Black Belt, we got a Northeastern Black Belt,
That's
a
right.
Midwest Black Belt, and a West Black Belt.
That's right.
So
That's
we
right.
got concentrations of Black people all over
All
this
over the
country.
place.
So
That's
that would
right.
be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
And two quick things, Brother Ray. I would like to come up and see you sometime at Oregon if you're back in your office.
Sure.
And the other thing is, if you could help us, if you got a draft of a resolution that we could send to the United Nations, or if you could help us write up that draft, I think that was a great idea. And I like.
Oh yeah.
I'd be happy to. Be happy to. No problem.
Just give us an outline. You know, we don't want to put too much work on you, but if you could just help guide us, that would be great.
I'll send something to you for sure.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a
All right.
pleasure, bro.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Oh, thank you again. We
I'll
say
see
we
you.
appreciate you.
All right.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
And
Thanks,
thank you, Sister
everyone.
Pamela, for joining us.
And it's
I guess he's
all
buying his
hearts
yacht
come
already.
cold.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone.
Mhm.
Thank
Right.
you, Thomas.
you.
Thank you, Thomas Muhammad.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Allende.
All right.
Saying appreciate you, man. Appreciate you all.